could you be? Steven, what? You came to see me. I told you to stay away, didn't I? Isn't it strange for someone like you, a broke person, to come to this bank? Oh, maybe you're here for a janitorial side gig.
The person I met at the bank was my ex-girlfriend, Emily White, whom I dated during my school days. She was strutting around arm in arm with a man in broad daylight. It was really just a fluke that we met at the bank.
Hey, my current boyfriend is the son of this bank's CEO. Quite different from you, huh? Ought to think I was dating someone like you back in the day. It's the biggest blunder of my life. Hey, can you move over a bit? I don't want your poverty to be contagious.
Emily shoved me on the shoulder. I recalled the miserable feelings from my school days, and something snapped in my mind. All right, I've decided. After that, the words I spoke turned my ex-girlfriend and her privileged partner pale. My name is Steven Taylor. I'm 17. My dad is the CEO of a tech company, and I've lived a more affluent life than most from a young age. I grew up thinking it was just natural to have anything I wanted, whether it was toys, games, or clothes. I dreamt vaguely of taking over my father's position as CEO, hoping to elevate the company even further. My hazy vision for the future seemed impressive enough to my peers. Given that I was top of my class academically, which lent credibility to my aspirations. Being the CEO's son and aspiring to the same position naturally commanded respect from other students at school, and I was often the center of attention. I even found a girlfriend in similar circumstances. She was Emily White, the well-known daughter of a cosmetics company president in our area. Emily was knowledgeable about cosmetics, skillfully using the products her company provided as samples. She always cared for her skin condition, and her natural makeup, fitting even in high school, made her the focus of many girls. She was a smart girl with high aesthetic sense. We, with similar status and abilities, were often hailed as a perfect couple. Emily would say, if Steven becomes a CEO, maybe I should too. A couple of CEOs would be cool, wouldn't it? She was such a sweet girlfriend. However, I painfully realized that the wealth and envy I possessed were ultimately given by others. When I entered 11th grade in high school, I heard some news that Taylor Systems, my father's company, had fallen victim to a cyber attack, leaking extensive corporate and customer data. This incident plummeted the company's trust and jeopardized its management. During the height of what seemed like international cyber terrorism, various companies and organizations were targeted, and it appears that my father's company was among them. While they're a pro-hacker group, we've got nothing but IT experts on our side. In case of a data breach at that company, you can bet the public backlash would be intense, raising questions like how was the security set up? Or were they all just a bunch of amateurs working there? Of course, the hackers were to blame, but I couldn't fully grasp that the company was responsible for not preventing it. Even with insurance payouts, the losses were massive. Clients canceled contracts one after another, and the company was investing in reinforcing its systems. Cash flow problems began, and bankruptcy became a real concern. In the midst of this, my father apologized to everyone, trying to protect his employees and the company. He reduced his own salary to a level just enough to get by, reallocating the saved money to the business and staff wages. I really didn't understand it. Why did he have to go to such lengths when he wasn't at fault? That's when my father told me.
Do you know why CEOs are wealthy?
Because they're important. I answered promptly, and he shook his head.
CEOs have a critical job. They bear the responsibility for everything in the company and must protect their employees. That's why they are paid a fitting salary, even if it's not their fault. Taking responsibility is part of being a CEO.
I never knew my father worked with such sentiment. CEOs are incredible. How naive I was, thinking I might want to be one. His words changed my view of society a little, and I then came to understand the harshness of human relationships.
Let me be clear.
One day, Emily boldly stated,
I don't think we're a good match anymore. Maybe we're just from different worlds.
"This situation with my dad's company was a well-known story at school. Especially considering she's the daughter of a president, Emily must have had the information.
If it becomes known that Taylor Systems, a company that lost its credibility, and White Cosmetics, and their kids are dating, it could damage us too."
I couldn't respond. People have their values. And it's not strange that some think like Emily does now.
So please don't associate with me anymore.
It was Emily who confessed this.
Steven, talking with you is fun, and you're knowledgeable and cool. That's why I fell for you.
She had said without any of the embarrassment she showed before. Was it all about public image or money in the end? No, thinking about it anymore is pointless. I considered it a lesson in social studies and quietly backed away. Then, I cleared my head and thought about the future. What should be my priority now? Obviously, my family. Dad, can I join your company even if I drop out of high school? Oh, I don't need a salary, of course, just as a trade for learning about society. Would that be okay? My sudden proposal shocked my parents. High school, even college, isn't something I must attend right now. But if my father's company goes under, it can't be restored. And so, in my sophomore year, I decided to drop out of high school. The news spread quickly among my classmates, and naturally, Emily found out too. On my last day of school, I was comforted by friends who supported my decision.
Well, that makes sense. It's not the time to be in high school.
I overheard Emily saying from a distance. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Having known only the world of high school, I first learned the etiquette of being a working adult, then about Taylor Systems, and the very basics of the job. The company now seemed to be divided into two main sections, one for recovery efforts to regain trust, and another continuing with system development as usual. With no knowledge of IT, I naturally joined the recovery team as support staff. I was drilled by senior employees on the details of the cyber attack, the company's reflections, and the specifics of future security enhancement plans. And I went on many trips to apologize and explain to our clients as part of my training. It seemed like they needed all the help they could get, and as soon as the training ended, I was sent alone to a small subcontractor. Although we had apologized several times, we arranged multiple meetings to maintain relationships and promote our products and improved security. At 17, I was seen no differently from any regular employee by our clients. I faced stern reprimands, intense questioning, and challenging inquiries. Some companies even told us never to show our faces again. There were times I felt utterly desperate and wanted to run away, but I kept apologizing sincerely. My father and the other employees were going through much harder times. All this time, I had been living comfortably on the money earned by my father and the employees. I had to repay that kindness. That resolve kept me standing firm. When I visited a certain factory, a different person appeared in the reception room instead of the usual sales manager. For some reason, the president himself was there to meet me. Why? What did they want from me? There was no time to ponder these questions. I straightened up, even more, realizing the gravity of the situation. As I was about to pull out the documents I always carried with me to start explaining the situation, the person gestured with a hand for me not to bother.
We're already informed. No worries.
Oh, really? I sincerely apologize for any inconvenience we've caused.
No need to apologize so much. Look up.
I was taken aback by this different approach. Unlike the sales manager who always bombarded me with stern questions. Meanwhile, the president was having a coffee with a smile.
You look quite young. How old are you?
I'll be 18 this year.
Still a minor, then, and yet you're already with Taylor Systems.
It's my father's company, actually. Surprised, he asked.
Oh, weren't you given the chance to go to college? You're not of the age to work so hard yet.
I chose this myself. I wanted to support my father and the employees in these difficult times, so I insisted on joining the company. I'm still inexperienced and don't know much about society, but I believe I can be of some use. The president took a sip of the coffee again and nodded.
Your parents have raised you well, haven't they?
Thank you. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should be modest, but I nodded honestly, acknowledging that my parents are indeed respectable people.
By the way, our sales director is quite the stern figure, isn't he?
I almost choked on my words, but calmly denied it. I couldn't possibly agree out loud. No, not at all. He always takes the time to listen, and I'm grateful for that.
It's good you think so, but I feel he can be a bit too forceful. He has mentioned you occasionally and seemed quite pleased. So young and yet so responsible. He's looking forward to the future of Taylor Systems.
That's really.
You didn't hear it directly, did you? He may have been tough on you, but behind the scenes, I've only heard good things. That's why I insisted on meeting you today. Just like he said, you're a serious kid. In light of your efforts, we should consider resuming our business dealings.
Thank you so much.
We owe a lot to Taylor Systems, after all.
My efforts had finally paid off, and I was overwhelmed with joy. Being able to contribute to the company, to my family, brought tears to my eyes. I expressed my gratitude again and again, careful not to let my emotions show. Almost simultaneously, other clients and partners began to express their forgiveness. Senior employees praised me, but I knew it was all thanks to everyone who kindly taught me from scratch when I was still just a kid. Thanks to my parents who supported me since childhood, the people at the company, and our clients, I am where I am today because of the involvement of so many people. I learned how important it is to support each other and felt profound gratitude. 10 years had passed since the company faced a turning point. I got out of a taxi in front of a towering building in the heart of a district filled with office buildings in downtown. There, in front of the headquarters of a major bank, which stood out among the rest. Overwhelmed by its size, I approached the entrance. As a man and woman came out, I stepped aside to let them pass, my gaze caught by the woman's profile. When it seemed she felt my stare, she turned around.
Hey, isn't that Steven?
The woman's voice, recognizing me, and her face, brought back memories. It was Emily White, my girlfriend from high school. She was wearing a bank uniform. Possibly an employee here. Whether she took over her family's company or worked here for experience, I didn't know or care. But having been addressed by name, I was about to simply nod and enter the building when she spoke again.
What? Did you come to see me? I told you to stay away, didn't I?
Was it not clear I was just passing by? I wanted to remark on her self-importance, but shook my head to avoid a scene. It's a coincidence.
A coincidence. You don't have any business here, do you? Or maybe you're here for a janitorial job. Our janitors are quite skilled, though. I wonder if you'd fit in.
Emily, who is he?
The man next to Emily was arm in arm with her. Likely her current partner.
Just an ex. Not really significant. Just a brief thing in high school. He became so poor he had to drop out. Such a pitiful guy.
You were even kind to someone like that, Emily. That's sweet of you.
Why must I be looked down upon by a stranger? The indirectness of it all was particularly irritating. Pleased with the praise, Emily continued to look down on me with a smile.
Sadly, I've moved to even higher circles since then.
She seemed to believe I was still chasing her, relentlessly talking about unasked details.
I got a job here. I'm off to lunch with him now. He's the son of the bank president, the future successor, of course.
She boasted as if it were her own achievement. Maybe dating the president's son is a result of her efforts. So just because he's her boyfriend or whatever, doesn't mean he's all that impressive, as far as I can tell. What truly deserves respect is the bank president himself and the employees and partners who contribute to the management. Eventually, Emily and her boyfriend might become part of that, but they shouldn't be so arrogant with just our level of professional experience. Arguing would be pointless, so I held back. Important lessons are learned through experience. And clearly, they had no interest in hearing what I had to say. I see.
Too shocked to speak.
Emily's boyfriend, likely a Morgan since that's the bank president's surname, said,
It's understandable. We aren't really the type to mingle with the common folk.
Common folk?
Yes. You didn't really think you could join our bank, did you? Did you think a commoner like you could get in?
What exactly do you mean by common folk?
Just that. Ordinary, with nothing special about them. Only the chosen should step foot in this headquarters. After all, you have no business here. Oh, you wanted to see Emily, right? Just try stepping onto the property, and I'll have security throw you out.
I can't enter the bank.
Of course not.
That's troublesome. If I can't be involved, I guess I'll have to close my account here, about $100 million worth. I didn't want to mention the exact amount, but thought it necessary to make an impact and shut them up. However, they didn't seem to take me seriously.
$100 million. My gosh. Even if you dropped out of high school, you should know how to do basic math.
You're quite funny, you know. Do you even realize how much $100 million is? Can you tell me how many bucks you'll need?
Seeing them laugh it off, I realized there was no point in continuing the conversation. Leaving the laughing pair behind, I headed toward the bank.
Hey, if you go any further.
but before I could enter, a suited man came out, recognized me, and greeted me.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Long time no see. Prompted by him, I returned the greeting.
I saw you from inside, Stephen.
Dad,
The guy who seemed to be a son of Morgan, Paul, couldn't help but exclaim. Yes, this man was his father, the bank president himself, named John Morgan. John immediately glared at the sound of his son's voice and rebuked him in a calm tone.
How many times must I tell you not to call me Dad at work? You're not a child anymore. Act accordingly.
oh,
And what's with that arm around her? Even if it's a break, it's still working hours. It's disgraceful.
After being pointed out, Paul and Emily detached from each other. Then, turning to face me in his sales smile, he explained,
This is my son. Did he do something rude to you?
It was a parade of rude remarks. How should I convey the extent of the disrespect beyond his imagination? Well, after talking to him, I decided to close our account here.
What?
His eyes widened in shock, his whole body expressing surprise. I felt bad, but my mind was already made up.
Why on earth? Could it be that my son really did something improper?
Dad. I mean, President Morgan. Why do we have to be so humble with this person?
What are you saying?
John silenced his son's outburst.
He's the president of Taylor Systems, with whom our headquarters have direct dealings.
We have direct.
Indeed, in just 10 years, I had become the president. Having overcome the brink of bankruptcy, my father, as the president of Taylor Systems, recognized my efforts in learning extensively within the company and regaining much of its credibility. Believing the company could be entrusted to me, he transferred executive control more than 10 years ahead of schedule and assumed the chairmanship. Since regaining our lost credibility, the trust between our partners and clients has been stronger than ever, and with various support and advice, Taylor Systems has experienced rapid growth. Business magazines have even started saying we are leading the industry with exceptional momentum.
Not knowing President Taylor's face. That's what happens when you don't take your job seriously.
But Emily said,
I had no idea. Only knew him until high school.
Is it true? That guy has dealings with our bank.
His manner of speaking hadn't changed. He couldn't grasp the situation.
Be quiet. Stephen, let's talk inside.
No, thank you. Our company values people and employees above all as our philosophy. Paul's demeanor changed completely as our eyes met. However, a company that has people like him who scorn those with less money as commoners and sit complacently in their positions, especially since he's supposedly the next president. John turned pale and was insistent. I felt bad for him, but I thought it was due to his failure in educating his son and hoped he would come to terms with it. Thus, the dealings with Morgan Bank were terminated. Later, when the president personally came to apologize, I learned about the aftermath. Morgan Bank, having lost a significant contract worth about $100 million, became the center of attention both within and outside the industry. I heard that their contracts with several other companies were also at risk as shareholders, and the media became fully aware. Moreover, the incident in front of the bank involving me was witnessed by employees, and the narrative that Paul and Emily caused damage to the bank spread quickly. Being a true story, they had no excuse. Furthermore, Paul was not only removed from the list of future presidential candidates, but also got fired to rectify his character. Although John expressed a desire to rebuild trust with our company from scratch, restoring relations wouldn't be easy. Given the sin's behavior, it would be difficult to mend ties until the company underwent significant change, a decision my father, now the chairman, and I continued to politely decline. One day, my secretary proposed a new meeting schedule.
It's business related, but they specifically asked for you, not the sales department.
Really? What's the name?
It's Emily White from White Cosmetics. From the name, she seems to be from the owning family.
I was taken aback. Emily was trying to reach out to me through the company. For what reason? I hadn't heard from Emily since our encounter at Morgan Bank. I don't know what happened to her since, but she probably couldn't continue living as before. Maybe she left the bank to take over her family business. Still, I wondered why she was trying to contact me now. Could it be revenge? I speculated, but wouldn't know until we met. I decided to accept the meeting.
It's been a while.
Emily, whom I met in the reception room after 6 months, looked quite worn out, but was still well dressed, appearing like any other professional woman. After being laid off, Emily broke up with Paul, seemingly left with no choice but to return to her family home. There, she discovered the looming crisis her family's business was facing.
Our family business is on the brink of bankruptcy.
White Cosmetics. I had not heard such news before, but I recalled that White Cosmetics was a subsidiary, and it was the performance of the parent conglomerate that was in jeopardy.
The conglomerate decided to make some companies independent as part of cost-cutting measures. Our company was one of them.
That company is being incredibly irresponsible. Independence in name only, essentially meaning a mass layoff. It was clear that being suddenly released from control and left without support, survival would be unlikely. Such actions shouldn't be taken by a company affecting tens of thousands of lives. But there was no point in my getting angry. So, what brings you here, Ms. White? I decided to calmly listen to her story. Emily came here not as a former classmate or ex-partner, but as an employee of White Cosmetics.
I didn't know the situation at home. I thought marrying well and just working would make money, and I could send some back home. But returning home, I found things had turned out like this.
Her fists were clenched tightly on her lap, filled with either anger or sadness.
So I decided to work for my family's sake. I pleaded with my parents and managed to join the company to help turn it around, inspired by you, Stephen. No, Mr. Taylor.
Her eyes, aflame with determination, were different from when we were in high school or when we met in front of the bank.
Honestly, I looked down on you, dropping out of high school to join a company. I thought such a person couldn't possibly be an asset. I assumed your company was doomed. But I was wrong. Seeing you revive the company and live respectably, I couldn't just watch my own company crumble.
Emily, like me in the past, had been humbly seeking assistance and innovating products to attract more customers.
But it's not going well. My past actions, squandering my former company's dealings, meant I couldn't easily regain trust, which seems to have become known outside the company too. There were baseless rumors, but I realized that regaining lost credibility isn't easy, and I understand that I can't restore your trust by doing nothing.
Emily apologized deeply.
I'm sorry for all the disrespect and hurt I caused you. I fully understand how much you value people and trust. I'll strive to become someone like you. So please help White Cosmetics. I know it's overly convenient for me to ask.
Silence fell in the reception room. Emily stayed completely still. And I pondered. Specifically, what do you need? When I asked, Emily quickly lifted her face and pulled out a file from her bag, spreading it out for me to see.
Taylor Systems. We want you to develop a skin health check tool that can be easily used on smartphones and computers. According to our research, 80% of the users of our products.
I was genuinely surprised by how smoothly and convincingly Emily presented her proposal. Something I hadn't expected in just a few months.
That's the situation. However, we can't pay for it right now, so.
You mean a deferred payment arrangement, right?
Yes.
All right, let's collaborate.
Really? Oh, thank you so much.
Overwhelmed, Emily shouted out, and tears welled up in her eyes. Apologizing, she wiped her eyes with a handkerchief, a completely different person from the one I knew before. And so, the rescue project for White Cosmetics was initiated. Employees who had gone through similar situations showed significant enthusiasm. Emily occasionally visited our company for business discussions, each time looking around in wonder.
Why is everyone so kind? Honestly, there's no benefit to helping us.
The employees attending meetings with Emily consistently offered her words of encouragement.
We will definitely revive with our system. Don't give up.
I have a personal connection with that company. Maybe we should propose a deal.
Even I, as the president, was impressed by their integrity.
They are serious about their work, but isn't that a bit too passionate?
Do you think so? After the business meeting, Emily and I went to visit the manufacturer of the system equipment, and later entered a nearby restaurant to talk about our employees. I never imagined I would have a meal with Emily again. Our company values people and employees. It's not just a one-sided management philosophy. It has naturally evolved because everyone understands the necessity of mutual support. That includes not just our employees, but also our partners and clients. People like Emily and her company.
It's a wonderful company. I wonder if mine can be like that too.
It will be, I guarantee it. With Emily as she is now, I believe she can become an excellent president someday.
Sorry, it's a bit inappropriate to laugh at a time like this.
I was surprised when Emily suddenly started laughing and noticed her face was blushing.
I'm really happy to be called Emily again after so long.
Right. I had intentionally avoided using her name, trying to be mindful of our business relationship. Just slipped out.
I see.
Even as the food was served, we both stared at the table, not touching our meals. I never thought about wanting to start over with Emily. After being rejected so harshly, I had no lingering feelings. But she is no longer the same person. Hey!
Wait.
My voice was slightly high-pitched as I braced myself to speak. Stop by, Emily. I couldn't continue speaking.
I can't be with you. Not for any silly reason like before.
She said with a bashful smile.
Rather, it's the opposite. I'm not worthy of you.
That's not for Emily to decide.
I can't as I am now. What I did to you can't be undone. That's why. That's why I intend to rebuild the company and become someone worthy of you. If there's even a little place for me in your heart, then.
All right. Seeing my nod, Emily clenched her fists.
For my family, and to become someone worthy of you, I'll do my best.
Understood, I support you. Finally, we began to eat. I learned in business that without the support of others, one can't survive. Despite her past mistakes, Emily taught me that people can start over. The saying "no good deed goes unrewarded" holds true. I too can still make a difference. To be supported and to support others. We smiled at each other, acknowledging this mutual resolve. 5 years later, the rescue project for White Cosmetics succeeded, and Emily officially became the president. The day when her half-joking high school dream of a couple as presidents might become reality seems not too far away.
Poor folks will always stay poor, right? Would you even deposit a penny in my bank, huh?
At the high school reunion, I ran into the fated enemy, a daughter of a bank president, Sarah Johnson. She still looked down on me, spouting whatever she wanted. I was utterly astounded by her attitude. Still trying to mock me, I got so angry that I pulled out my phone and said, "President Johnson, I'm canceling a deposit of $100 million. And more shocking truths awaited her. I am Emily Thompson, 30 years old. While working as a lowly office worker, I'm also living alone. Even though I'm an office worker, my company pays me so poorly that paying rent is a stretch. Despite the struggle, I prefer not to rely on my parents, dedicating my days off to side jobs and being extremely frugal when times are tough. My lifestyle might seem a bit constrained to others, but I have a loving partner and am satisfied with my life." Then one day, an invitation to the high school reunion arrived at my home. Seeing the invitation, I made a sour face. Because high school wasn't a place of fond memories for me. When I was in high school, I was a bit on the chubby side compared to others. I thought my face was plain, and more than anything, I hated my acne-prone sensitive skin. During high school, my skin condition was at its worst, and looking in the mirror every day brought me down. The one who took notice of me was Sarah Johnson, the most prominent girl in school. Sarah always called me dirty and even threw water over my head in the bathroom, claiming she was washing my face for me. I was hesitant to go to a reunion filled with such memories. But now I've lost a lot of weight compared to my high school days, and my skin has become smooth and clear, without a single blemish. Honestly, I think people who knew me back then wouldn't recognize me now. That's why I thought maybe it wouldn't hurt to go. But this thoughtless action would make me feel miserable like in the old days. On the day of the reunion, I dressed up in a new dress and went to the venue. While parking my car, feeling excited, I saw Rachel, an old good friend from school. I hadn't been in touch with her since graduating, so I felt nostalgic and immediately rushed to her after parking. "Long time no see, Rachel. Remember me? I'm Emily."
What? Emily? Is that really you? You've become so beautiful.
Hearing that from Rachel made me very happy. I could confidently say I had transformed significantly from my past self. Honestly, until Rachel said that, I wasn't sure if I had really changed. I was afraid of meeting high school friends who might say, "What, really? You haven't changed at all." But that fear vanished. Until she showed up.
Hey, you're in the way.
As we were walking by, none other than Sarah, who used to bully and torment me in the past, popped her head out of the car and called out to us. I recognized her immediately with her upturned eyes and loose, curly chestnut hair, just like before. Oh, sorry, Sarah. I found myself apologizing instinctively, out of old habit. She looked surprised at first, but then she exclaimed, "Huh?"
Could that voice be Emily?
Yes, it's me. I guess I've changed too much to be recognized, I said to Sarah with a sheepish smile. Then, Sarah began to smile with the same malicious delight as before.
Really? You've changed so much. Where did you dump that sloppy figure and nasty skin? Did you get plastic surgery or something?
Her words made me choke, but I gathered my courage to respond. No way, I don't have money for plastic surgery. I've worked hard to lose weight and even went to a dermatologist to improve my skin condition. I said this with a bit of pride, remembering the blood, sweat, and tears I put into my efforts. Sarah pursed her lips in displeasure for a moment, but soon returned to her usual smile.
Yay, right. Like you'd have money when your parents are so broke they're in debt.
Sarah's words made me bristle. Indeed, my parents had failed in business and accumulated debt at one point. And the lender was the bank where Sarah's father was the president. Her attitude worsened after that, a fact I couldn't forget even if I wanted to. However, my parents had paid off all their debts decades ago, so bringing that up now, I thought Sarah was still as mean-spirited as ever.
Well, no matter how much your appearance has changed, your introverted life remains the same, huh? Still mumbling and hunching over, I see. I thought you might have gained some confidence, but you're just like a cardboard cutout. What are you so proud of?
Sarah sneered and burst into laughter. Seeing her like that, I realized once again how much I disliked her. But I took her spiteful remarks as a sign that she might be feeling a bit bummed out. Sarah mocked me and then quickly rolled up her car window and drove off. Even though we were still standing there, she drove by without a care. What a nasty person. Maybe I should just go home. As I muttered this, watching Sarah's car, Rachel, who was glaring at Sarah, said, "Why? You've become beautiful. Don't sweat someone like her." Hearing Rachel's words, I reconsidered and headed to the venue. But I would later regret not leaving at that moment. As soon as I entered, I felt the glances of my classmates. Surely everyone thought I was Emily Thompson, walking along so familiarly with Rachel, but they must have been uncertain. When I told my name to the receptionist, who was the popular guy back then, exclaimed in surprise. That really put me in the spotlight all at once. Everyone looked at me with wide eyes and praised me. Just when I was starting to enjoy the attention, Sarah reappeared in front of me.
What's the commotion?
Like before, Sarah walked through the center of the venue with her entourage, exuding a certain intimidation in her high-brand attire. Realizing I was the center of attention, Sarah snorted disdainfully and said, "Oh, it's about her," feigning disinterest. She probably thought there was someone more noticeable than her around, maybe found it annoying. She came close to me with a creepy smile.
Look at her dress. It looks expensive at first glance, but it's actually cheap, bought from an overseas online store. She might have changed her looks, but it shows she hasn't changed inside. Still pretending, huh?
As Sarah spoke, her followers agreed. She seemed pleased with herself as she chuckled. Then, making belittling comments, she whirled in front of me, flaunting her outfit.
Look, my clothes are all high-end brands. Isn't the fluttering skirt hum so elegant? If you care about appearance, you should wear quality stuff. Otherwise, just like your clothes, you look cheap.
Then, Sarah grabbed my accessory and scoffed.
Oh, this is just gold-plated, huh? Suits your cheap outfit perfectly, doesn't it?
Feeling humiliated, I said, "Stop it," and brushed her hand away. Sarah seemed displeased and stared at me coldly.
What? You're standing up to me? think a fatty and ugly poor girl can do that?
Stop it. I'm not overweight anymore, and I'm not poo either.
So what? Just because you look a bit different, you think you're on top of the world. Sorry to burst your bubble, but I've maintained my figure since high school and put more effort into beauty and fashion than you ever did. So, you think you can beat me just by faking it in fancy clothes now?
Sarah's words doused my good mood, and I felt like my old insecure self was awakening. It was the worst feeling. As I clenched my back teeth in frustration, Sarah looked back at me with a triumphant expression and stepped closer. Then a nasty ripping sound echoed.
Oops, sorry, I just tried to touch this decoration and it tore off. But what can you expect, right? It's cheap clothing after all.
How could you do that?
Don't get mad, please. It's your fault for wearing cheap clothes. Maybe it was already fraying.
Incredibly, Sarah had pulled and ripped off a ribbon decoration from my dress. The room buzzed, and everyone started murmuring, focusing on Sarah and me. Enjoying the attention, Sarah even reached for my necklace. Hey, don't touch that.
I just wanted a closer look. I complimented your taste earlier, didn't I? Oh no, sorry, it tore because you resisted.
A nasty snapping sound hit my ears. At the same time, a sharp pain shot through my neck where the necklace was yanked off. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me, and tears started flowing. Seeing this, Sarah began to show her true colors even more. Instinctively feeling a bad premonition, I wanted to flee. But her entourage blocked my way. Tripped, I fell to the floor of the venue, hands first. Sitting nearby with a grin, Sarah looked down at me.
Hey, your face is dirty, just like in high school. Let me wash it for you.
Yuck. It was like a nightmare all over again. Sarah picked up a wine glass nearby and poured it over my head. That brought back memories of that time, and I couldn't help but shiver. But then, something different happened. Rachel, who had been quietly watching us and looked scared, finally spoke up. Stop it. I guess it took a lot of courage for her, as she had also been bullied by Sarah in high school. With Rachel's help, I managed to stand up and glance sideways at Sarah.
Introverts banding together, how amusing. But sadly, do you think plain girls like you can beat a winner like me?
We're not the same as before. Grow up already.
I am grown up. Unlike you, I'm going to be the next bank president, and I'm already engaged to the heir of a major corporation. Jealous, aren't you?
Sarah said dreamily, tilting her head and starting to talk about her fiancé.
He's the future president of a super famous advertising agency and has been modeling since elementary school. He adores me and acts all sweet when we're alone. Can life get any more perfect? I guess it's like a fairy tale for poor folks like you, huh?
Sarah was in high spirits, but her words made us stand out for all the wrong reasons, and I wanted to flee the scene. I regretted coming. After reuniting with old friends and being praised for my transformation, was I still the same inside, just as Sarah said? Clutching the tattered hem of my dress, I was overwhelmed with frustration. The tears wouldn't stop, even though I desperately wanted to hold them back. I couldn't help but wonder, why does it always have to be me? I had lost touch with Rachel because being with her often led to being targeted by Sarah, just like today, and it felt awkward. Today was supposed to be the day we could reminisce about the good old times together. Yet, Sarah ruined everything again. It was the worst. I can't take it anymore, let's go home. Feeling that way, I wiped away tears with the back of my hand and headed out of the venue with Rachel. But Sarah wasn't about to let go of her newfound amusement. The real hell started there.
Wait a minute, Where do you think you're going?
Called back by Sarah, we turned around with our heads down. Then Sarah started saying,
All you do is cry when I call you Pua. Don't you ever want to change your situation? It's really pathetic.
Although I felt the disapproving glances from the crowd, no one voiced their objection. Nobody wanted to become her next target. I realized I probably wouldn't have spoken up either if Sarah had targeted another classmate. She had been an absolute presence since high school.
Does everyone know? That's Emily over there. Her parents once borrowed money from my dad's bank. They paid it back, but you know, Emily herself borrowed money from our bank until recently.
It doesn't matter. Sarah, you don't work there. It's none of your business. Don't announce it so loudly.
If you're ashamed of borrowing money, why do it at all, especially when your parents had debts too? Doesn't that show a lack of learning?
I had no choice. I needed it. My weak retort made Sarah laugh scornfully. That's why low-level people are just sad. Fed up with her unchanging attitude, I pulled Rachel's arm, eager to end the conversation and leave. But even as we walked away, Sarah kept talking.
Pua people will always be Pua, right? Would you even deposit a penny in my bank, huh?
Hearing this, I was furious and involuntarily stopped in my tracks. Why should my efforts be ridiculed to this extent? Anger began to simmer within me. If she was going to go that far, I couldn't stay silent any longer. Until now, I had hesitated to talk back or retaliate, always mindful of myself and others. But was it right to just walk away? To spend a lifetime being seen as a loser by her? I couldn't stand that thought. I had worked hard and changed my appearance, which had been a huge complex for me. That was an undeniable fact. Now was the time to make a decisive break with Sarah, to stand up for myself. With that in mind, I turned back to face Sarah. Then I took out my phone and prepared to retaliate. President Johnson, canceling a deposit of $100 million. I put the phone to my ear and said it loud and clear, making sure she heard every word. Sarah clearly heard my words, responding with a dumbfounded huh. I continued, actually. I had promised to deposit $100 million in your father's bank. That statement silenced everyone in the venue. Rachel, standing next to me, was gaping in shock. Indeed, I had been approached just the other day about depositing $100 million into the bank where Sarah's father is the president. I knew exactly why they came to me. Your father's bank was in trouble, and they asked if I could help. I wasn't interested at first, but they pleaded so desperately that I finally said I could deposit $100 million. As I casually mentioned this, Sarah murmured in astonishment, "No way." It seemed her father hadn't told his family about the bank's dire situation. Well, telling Sarah about it wouldn't change anything anyway, so it's not surprising he kept quiet about it. But I've decided to cancel that $100 million deposit. Sadly, that means your father's bank is done for. And since you'll be losing your allowance, you'll need to start working for yourself. As I said this with a smile, Sarah's face turned red and she lowered her voice. What are you talking about?
Stop lying. There's no way a Pua person like you has $100 million. It's just not realistic.
It's not a lie. You saw me calling your father, right? Look, the line is still connected.
Humph, you're probably just pretending. If it's true, then let me see the phone.
Sarah snatched the phone from me and pushed me aside. But it didn't matter to me, because I was genuinely on the phone with her father. Sarah's expression tensed up as she heard her father's voice on the phone.
What? No way.
Is that you, Sarah? Why are you with Emily? Did you do something to her?
What are you talking about, Dad? As if she's some important client.
Of course, she is an important client, you fool. What have you done? I'm coming over right now. You said it's the reunion today, right? I know the venue from the notification card left on the desk. Wait for me there.
Sarah, being scolded over the phone, seemed to panic. I watched her flustered reaction and couldn't help but smirk in a way that was almost too sinister. Sarah, with a frightened look, asked, "What is going on?" "Well, I'm doing illustration as a side gig, and recently a person who worked for a major gaming company approached me to collaborate on a game. I was curious why they chose me, but I kinda just took on that job."
And what about it?
Then it became a mobile app game and exploded in popularity, and the payouts to me became pretty substantial. I've taken on other jobs, too, and since I don't usually spend much, all that money just went straight into my savings. Sarah's mouth flapped open and closed like a fish. "By the way, I did take a loan from your father's bank for that project, but it seems you mistook it for debt."
Loan, isn't that the same as debt?
A loan means borrowing with a solid business plan and repayment schedule. Yes, it's debt, but you get it only after passing a credit check, promising to repay it fully. Aren't you the bank president's daughter? Shouldn't you know this? As I explained, Sarah's face turned red and she looked down, apparently not knowing any of this. She must have overheard something about my loan from her father and misunderstood it on her own. I sighed, exasperated by Sarah's ignorance. Yet, she still seemed unwilling to stop looking down on me.
Humph, I don't know about your illustrations, but I bet they're the kind of creepy, sensual ones that would come from a nerd like you. That's why they got popular. How disgusting.
Sarah said this, dramatically rubbing her arms. Her words were so outlandish, clearly a desperate insult, that I didn't even bother to retort. Taking my silence as affirmation, Sarah smirked and said, just as I thought,
"Just because you're making money doesn't make those kinds of illustrations any less embarrassing. I wouldn't mind taking a look, though. Send them to my phone. In fact, why not share them with everyone, huh?"
Sarah tried to rattle me again, but I wasn't fazed. I didn't know what kind of illustrations she was imagining, but I wasn't ashamed of my work. If she wanted to see them, I was ready to show her. Suddenly, I noticed her phone case and exclaimed, "Oh!" Sarah, curious, raised an eyebrow and prompted me to explain. "That phone case you're holding, I designed it in a limited edition collaboration with a high-end brand."
What?
I've learned since starting side work that illustration encompasses a variety of jobs. I happened to connect with someone on social media who works as a designer for that high-end brand, and they recommended me for the collaboration. Sarah looked stunned, examining her phone case closely.
Lies. I was told when I bought it that it was made by a talented designer, specially for me. You're saying you're that talented designer? Don't make me laugh.
It's true. Believe it or not, it's up to you. As I shrugged resignedly, Sarah glared at me with frustration. Just then, Sarah's father, whom I had just called, arrived. He came over, sweating and flustered.
Emily, I had to come after our conversation just a little while ago. I couldn't stay away. Please forgive my sudden visit. But why? Why would you refuse the $100 million deposit? Could you please explain the reason to me?
Dad, you really came.
Sarah, I don't need you right now. Go over there. I have important matters to discuss. This concerns the future of the Johnsons.
Sarah's father said dismissively, treating her harshly. She glared at me, grumbling about the unfair treatment.
What's so great about her? Dad's the bank president, right? He's supposed to lend money, not borrow. And now he's groveling because she refused a bank account, so what?
You don't understand. Our bank is failing because of your extravagant spending. Your actions led to this situation.
What do you mean?
Sarah rushed to her father, who was apologizing profusely as if he were about to collapse, wearing a puzzled expression on her face. He sighed in dismay at his daughter's ignorance. And then he pushed her aside and immediately dropped to his knees, starting to pour out heartfelt apologies. Sarah stood there, dumbfounded by her father's actions. He apologized for Sarah's past rudeness, and he desperately begged for the $100 million deposit reconsideration. I remained firm in my decision, shaking my head. Sarah snapped back to reality and stood between her father and me.
Stop it, Dad. It's embarrassing. You're the bank president. Act like it. I can't believe my father is acting this way. And Emily, don't get all high and mighty. You're just a nobody who happened to come into some money,
Sarah said defiantly, puffing out her chest. Then her father, with a fierce look, confronted her.
What are you talking about? Our bank earned its status through generations of community trust. You know nothing, acting all high and mighty. It's because of your meddling that I'm forced to make this deeply sincere apology.
Hearing her father's loud scolding, Sarah choked up. The president's anger was far from over.
First of all, I thought that if you had gotten along with that heir, our bank could have recovered. But you couldn't make a good impression with your haughty attitude, could you? You just rave about how handsome he is, then leave me to clean up your mess. What are you thinking?
We gasped at his words. Just before, Sarah had claimed to be engaged to the next president. Could it be a lie? I wasn't the only one shocked. The onlookers, who had been watching from a distance, suddenly turned their gaze toward Sarah all at once. Sarah caught everyone's stares and started to sweat nervously.
Stop it. Don't embarrass me. It's his fault for not seeing my worth.
It's because you lack charm. Be useful for once. You're nothing but a freeloader. At least contribute something.
My life is mine. You have no right to say that, Dad.
Say that when you can earn a living on your own.
They continued to shout insults at each other. The rest of us didn't know how to react to this spectacle. They really were like two peas in a pod. As we wondered when their argument would end, the president erupted.
Enough. Talking to you is pointless. If this deal falls through, your allowance, everything, will be gone. I'm cutting ties with you as family.
Wait, that's going too far. Are you serious?
I don't joke. Since the engagement with the heir fell through, you've been worthless to me. I've been planning to disown you ever since.
Shocked by her father's words, Sarah was frozen in place. Leaving her behind, her father, after catching his breath, gave up on the deal and left. Sarah, left alone, stood petrified in the eerily silent venue. I turned to Rachel, who was beside me in disbelief, and said, "Let's go home. I've got no business here anymore, and I can't be bothered with this charade any longer." Rachel also started walking slowly, with me leading the way. At that moment, Sarah, who had been immobile, she suddenly sprang into action and lunged at me as I turned my back to her. Caught off guard, I was nearly overpowered when someone restrained her. It was my boyfriend, Kyle McLachlan. Initially, Sarah struggled against Kyle's hold, but when she saw his face, she gasped. Then her cheeks flushed as she exclaimed,
Kyle, what are you doing here? Did you come to see me? Have you reconsidered our marriage?
I blurted out in astonishment, "What?" Then Sarah turned to me, smiling triumphantly.
He's the fiancé I was talking about. Someone out of your league, like a prince out of a fairy tale.
Confused by her claim, I was about to ask what was going on when Kyle shook his head in exasperation.
Emily, don't believe her. There was talk of an engagement, but I couldn't stand her on a gut level, so I called it off. We have nothing to do with each other now, but she's been going around spreading rumors that she's my girlfriend.
Kyle, wait, you mean that persistent girl you were talking about?
Right, Sarah's the one I was talking about. But I'm marrying Emily soon, and her nuisance behavior needs to stop, so I'm consulting with a lawyer. I never expected to run into Emily here, though.
Sarah's jaw dropped wide open as she watched me chatting with Kyle. Then, after comparing me and Kyle several times, she asked in confusion,
What do you mean? You dumped me for her. Didn't you just say that?
Kyle bluntly replied, Yes, I did. At that, Sarah started yelling hysterically.
What? Impossible. Why would Kyle be with such a plain girl? How did you even meet? Are you blackmailing him, Emily? There's no way Kyle would marry Emily. Absolutely impossible.
That's rude. I haven't blackmailed anyone. We just met at a painting class and hit it off. I had no idea there was talk of an engagement with Sarah.
Of course, he's the future president of a famous ad agency and a model. Only someone like me is worthy of him, not the trash like you. You're tricking Kyle.
Sarah charged at me, pushed him aside, and came closer to me. I stood firm, meeting her with a resolute glare.
You're being deceived by her, Kyle. She back in high school had a face full of acne, was fat, and was just plain ugly, like some kind of ogre. It's not too late to change your mind. Marrying me would make you much happier.
Sarah tried to charm Kyle, shoving me aside. Though annoyed and jealous, I trusted Kyle not to be fooled by her, waiting for his response.
I came here for Emily. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with someone who spreads lies about being in a relationship with me.
Stunned by his firm rejection, Sarah froze, seemingly unable to believe she was being turned down.
Why? I'm so beautiful. Definitely better suited to be by Kyle's side. You should think harder. Choosing her now, you'll surely regret it. Even compatibility horoscopes show that she and Kyle are a mismatch.
That's exactly why I can't stand you.
Sarah, clinging to Kyle, was refused adamantly, and she ended up sitting weakly on the ground. In the venue, all eyes were on Sarah with judgment. Eventually realizing the attention, she blushed and hurried out of the venue. Later, Sarah was kicked out of her home. On top of that, she's living a lavish lifestyle despite being broke and drowning in debt. Unable to forget Kyle, she even caused trouble at his workplace, ending up arrested and spending time behind bars. Hearing this, I felt like I finally got revenge for high school. Moreover, since that day, my luck turned, and I achieved even greater success as an illustrator. Things really kicked off when I got approached for deals even from overseas animated movies. This made me even more of a celebrity. Thanks to this, I was able to leave my job as an office worker and make a living happily as an illustrator, married to the man I love. Rachel and I also rekindled our friendship from high school. It's been a journey with its ups and downs, but ultimately, I'm living a wonderful life now, and I intend to cherish it.
There's no place for a poor high school grad here.
When I attended a networking event hosted by a client, I was told by a former classmate, a company president's daughter, Samantha, to leave the venue. My stretched patience finally snapped. In front of a crowd, fed up with Samantha's insults directed at me, I simply said before I left, "Understood." As I was about to leave the event, a person with a pale face appeared before me. As a result, Samantha ended up losing her job and family, becoming destitute. My name is Kevin Carter, and I'm 35 years old. I work at Carter Foods as an executive. We're a company that handles a variety of foods, from processed products to bottled water, and we're committed to product development. Due to family issues, I couldn't continue to college and started working at Carter Foods after high school graduation. I've been working for 20 years, and I still find my job enjoyable. In my private life, I married my wife, Emily, whom I met through an acquaintance 2 years ago. We don't have kids yet, but hopefully, in time. I was leading a contented life both at work and at home, but one day I ran into a high school classmate, and that encounter led to an unbelievable turn of events. Ever since I was a kid, I loved researching various things and dreamed of becoming a researcher. Because of that, I studied diligently from elementary school, always maintaining top grades. However, when I was in high school, my mother ran off with her affair partner, leaving my father and me behind. The shock of her leaving drove my father to alcoholism, and he was in and out of hospitals, unable to work. Naturally, college was out of the question for me. My uncle, my dad's brother, supported us with living expenses, so we managed to get by. But I couldn't ask him to cover tuition, so I gave up on college. My uncle told me not to worry, but I couldn't bring myself to depend on him, so I decided to work right after graduating from high school and joined the current company. Back then, it was rare for someone not to go to college, and the fact that I, the top of my class, wasn't going became a hot topic. That's when Samantha, a prominent figure in the class, said to me,
"Because you're poor, you're not going to college, right? High school grad, seriously, your life is pretty much over. You've got a dark future ahead."
For some reason, Samantha saw me as an adversary, taunting me every time she saw me. Probably because her father was a company president and she was rich, she found it amusing to mock me for being poor. I thought it was pointless to engage with her, so I kept ignoring her, which she probably didn't like. So, I was teased for being poor all the way until graduation. At the time, not being able to go to college was hard, and her words always made me feel bad. But looking back on it now, I think it was good to end up in such a perfect job even with just a high school diploma. One afternoon, I went with a junior colleague to the Matthews Group for a business negotiation about a new product. While waiting for the representative in the lobby after checking in at the reception, someone called out from behind me,
"Isn't that Kevin? No way. You haven't changed at all."
When I turned around, there stood a woman. As I wondered who it was, her face gradually jogged my memory. It was Samantha, my former high school classmate. As soon as she saw me, she started with the pleasantries as if reminiscing, but then quickly began mocking me just like the old days.
"What's a lowly high school grad doing here? You couldn't have landed a job at any significant company, could you?"
While I was amazed that she hadn't changed at all even as an adult, I asked Samantha if she worked for the Matthews Group.
"Well, of course, my dad's the president of the Matthews Group. That makes me the daughter of the president of a top company."
Samantha boasted high and mighty that she was going to be the next president of this company. When I responded with disinterest, she seemed a bit miffed.
"As unpleasant as ever. There's no way our company would deal with someone who hires people like you. I'm not being mean, but you'd be better off going home."
Adding that it was a waste of time, Samantha left the company and went somewhere else. She had called me unpleasant, but I thought she was quite the nasty piece herself. When the representative arrived, I decided to proceed to the negotiation. After successfully concluding the negotiation, I sent my subordinate home and returned to the company for the remaining work. While working quietly at the office, my smartphone notification went off. Checking my phone, I had received a direct message on social media. Thinking it was unusual, I checked it, and it was from Samantha. She probably tracked down my account through mutual contacts or friends. Wondering what she wanted, I saw the message was mocking me. I was amazed that she would go as far as to harass me through social media. Thinking it was pointless to engage, I decided to thoroughly ignore Samantha's messages. Then, realizing she was being ignored, she started sending messages and calls through the messaging app, maybe getting my contact from a classmate who knew me. I was annoyed at myself for having the auto-ed feature on. The notification sound was irritating, and she kept sending messages despite me not responding at all. It didn't stop even when I got home, and my phone kept ringing even during dinner with Emily. Emily must have thought it was odd and asked if something happened. So, I told her about today's events and that it had been going on like this for a while.
She sounds like a piece of work. You can't go silent mode because of work, right? Why don't you just turn off notifications for her? If you engage, it might just get worse.
Following Emily's advice, I turned off notifications for Samantha's contact. After that, I wasn't troubled by notification sounds anymore.
By the way, you're going to the networking event too, right, Kevin?
Yo, the chairman can't make it, so I'm planning to go alone. You're going too, right, Emily?
Of course. I even got a new dress for it. Take a look.
Emily showed me the dress with excitement. It was a simple design that suited her well, and I was looking forward to seeing her in it at the event. Messages from Samantha have been coming non-stop since then, but turning off notifications means I'm not bothered by them anymore. However, I didn't read them, thinking it'd just get worse if she knew I've seen them. They're probably full of mockery anyway. I'm tormented by regret for having met Samantha at that time, at that place. Time has passed, and the day of the networking event has arrived. I was more nervous than usual at this gathering of various companies. My company was invited too, and the chairman was supposed to attend, but due to work commitments, I ended up going alone. As I entered the venue and looked around, I recognized someone familiar. They seemed to notice me too and waved over enthusiastically. Just as I was about to head their way, a woman stood in my path. What? Why? It was Samantha who appeared before me. Then, I remembered something. Today's event was hosted by the president of the Matthews Group. Of course, as the president's daughter, Samantha would be there, and my mood instantly dropped.
After all this time ignoring me, who do you think you are? And why are you even here? How did you sneak in?
Samantha glared at me, visibly irritated. She must be pretty upset that I've been ignoring her messages. When I explained that I was invited and attending, Samantha burst out laughing.
As if my dad would never invite a high school grad loser like you. You probably heard about the event and snuck in to save on dinner, right? That's just like something a poor person would do.
Samantha continued to hurl harsh words at me. Even I have my limits. Furious over Samantha's messages and past behavior, I clenched my fists so tightly, trembling with anger.
There's no place for a poor high school grad here.
I had reached my breaking point. In front of everyone, as Samantha directed her insults at me, I simply said, "Understood," and was about to leave when I heard,
President Kevin.
I sue President Matthews, the president of the Matthews Group, looking pale as he stared at us. He must have witnessed the entire exchange between Samantha and me. He looked like he was about to collapse.
What are you saying, Dad? That this guy is a president? He's just a poor man.
President Matthews interrupted Samantha with a shout.
Samantha, who do you think you're talking to? Kevin here is the president of Carter Foods, which supplies most of our products. Do you have any idea what would happen to us without Carter Foods products?
Samantha tried to make excuses, saying, "But." The truth is, the Matthews Group runs a nationwide restaurant chain, and our company supplies the food products they sell.
Aren't you supposed to be part of the executive team? How can you not know this?
But I just never thought a high school grad from the bottom could be a president. He was so poor in high school.
Indeed, I was admittedly very poor during high school. However, after graduating and joining my uncle's company, Carter Foods, I was able to lead a decent life. My uncle, a bachelor without children, said, "I always thought I'd be a lifelong bachelor. So, I want you to take over the company in the future. Please do your best." He told me this when I joined the company. 3 years after I started working, my father, who had been in and out of the hospital, passed away. After my father's death, my uncle and I underwent an adult adoption, and when I was 25, 10 years ago, I took over the company and became the president.
The high school grad with no prospects.
President Matthews did not miss Samantha's muttering.
You really don't know anything. Since Kevin took over, they've been developing and launching hit products one after another. There's no other genius like him. Some of the products they supply to us are exclusive to Carter Foods.
After taking over from my uncle, I decided to focus on product development, something I always wanted to do since I wanted to be a researcher. As a result, we have been able to create various hit products, some of which are patented. If those products were no longer supplied, it would be the Matthews Group that would be in trouble.
Can you take responsibility if your actions cause us to lose the contract?
Samantha finally seemed to realize she had gone too far and stopped making excuses.
Kevin, I am deeply sorry for my daughter's extremely rude behavior. Please accept my apologies. I will make sure to speak with her, so please don't let this affect our business.
President Matthews repeatedly apologized to me, but Samantha herself just stood there with a clueless expression. She was only watching her father apologize, showing no sign of thinking she was in the wrong at all. I had no intention of ending the business over this, but even so, her attitude was unacceptable. Despite her father humbling himself for her sake, Samantha herself was unmoved. Samantha, your father, the president, is going to such lengths to apologize, and you have nothing to say. Aren't you the one at fault here? I asked incredulously, and Samantha glared at me sharply.
I mean, I didn't know you were the president. If I had known, I wouldn't have done this. It's your fault for not telling me. I'm not in the wrong.
Her refusal to see her own fault, even now, was almost refreshing to me. Her attitude turned President Matthews's face even bluer. Listen, I've been meaning to ask. Why are you so fixated on me? You did it in high school, and even now as adults, you send messages on social media. What's your intent? I've always wondered, so I asked Samantha why she's so fixated on me. From the snide remarks during our high school days to the relentless, almost demonic messages she keeps sending through social media, I'm full of questions about what she's aiming for by doing all this. To my surprise, it was President Matthews who reacted more to my words than Samantha, gasping, You've been doing what? Confronted by her father's shocked expression, Samantha awkwardly confessed. Then, Samantha, looking somewhat sheepish, said, I've hated you since high school. Despite being a nerd, you were adored by everyone. I couldn't stand that you were getting more attention than me, even though I'm a president's daughter. It was all just meant to be a bit of harassment. She pointed at me, crying out hysterically. Stunned by such a trivial reason for her actions, I was left speechless.
To think that my own daughter could be so malicious.
President Matthews, perhaps realizing the extent of his daughter's spitefulness, was holding his head. Feeling the negative atmosphere and the stares from around, I knew I couldn't stay at the event any longer. Mr. Matthews, I'm sorry, but may I be excused for today? I conveyed my intention to leave to President Matthews. Then, President Matthews said,
I'm really sorry. I'll come to apologize again later.
President Matthews mentioned like this, looking disappointed. However, Samantha still looked sulky, with a displeased expression on her face. Thinking this just wasn't going to work, I was about to leave the scene when a woman came running up to me.
Mr. Matthews, it seems my husband is leaving, so I'll be heading out as well.
The woman who came over to me was my wife, Emily.
You are, Emily.
President Matthews's face turned even paler, and he muttered Emily's name under his breath. And Samantha's face, which had been sulky until now, also started to turn pale. Executive Emily Carter, the granddaughter of the chairman of our parent company. They froze upon seeing Emily.
It seems you do know who I am. Mr. Matthews, I haven't introduced him to you. This is Kevin Carter, my husband.
Contrary to the two pale faces, Emily introduced me with a beaming smile. My wife and I don't like standing out, so we invited only close family and friends to our wedding in Bali. After returning home, we didn't hold a wedding reception and only reported our marriage to our companies. So, President Matthews probably didn't expect that I was Emily's husband. Realizing I'm her husband, both President Matthews and Samantha looked back and forth between Emily and me in surprise. Our love story is actually deeply connected to my uncle. At the time, my uncle, who was a CEO, was close friends with the chairman of the Matthews Group's parent company, and he was consulted about the chairman's granddaughter who was still single in her late 20s. When asked if he knew any good matches, my uncle suggested, "How about my son? He's 3 years older but a sincere and upstanding young man." He recommended me, over 30 and still single with no girlfriend. The chairman was keen, and before we knew it, discussions between the chairman and my uncle had advanced, and an arranged meeting was set up without our consent. Honestly, both Emily and I were workaholics and not very interested in marriage. But given the business relationship between our companies, we reluctantly agreed to the meeting. Surprisingly, we hit it off despite it being our first encounter. We were amazed at how well we got along. After that, things progressed smoothly, and we moved quickly from dating to marriage. The period from our meeting to marriage was about 6 months. That's how my uncle brought Emily and me together. Moreover, Emily's parents work in different professions and have nothing to do with the Matthews Group. But Emily joined the parent company after graduating from college and is currently working hard as an executive director.
Such a way to speak about my husband, huh? From what I hear, you didn't like him because he was more popular. To harass someone for such a reason. How childish can you be?
Well, that's...
Samantha, confronted by Emily, was pale and seemed unable to find the words to excuse herself.
You haven't shown any sign of apologizing up till now. If you're thinking of excuses, maybe there's something else you should be doing. To think such a person is the future president of a subsidiary. We're really being taken lightly, huh?
With her last words possibly directed at President Matthews, Emily flashed a defiant smile towards him. Like a frog under the glare of a snake, President Matthews began to sweat profusely from his forehead and started shaking uncontrollably.
I'm terribly sorry. I had no idea Kevin was your husband. My deepest apologies.
My husband has nothing to do with this. Mr. Matthews, your daughter's behavior is unreasonable. She cannot be recognized as a candidate for future president.
Emily's stern words made President Matthews tremble in his apologies, as if he was about to prostrate himself on the spot. But Samantha stood there with a pale face, still not uttering a word of apology. Perhaps exasperated by Samantha's attitude, Emily sighed deeply and said, "Even in this situation, not a word of apology, huh? Understood. We'll hold a meeting to discuss the future, taking into account the issue of the next president."
What? You can't?
Mr. Matthews, depending on how things go, a dismissal from your position is very much a possibility. So please keep that in mind, okay?
After dropping this bombshell on the Matthewses, she turned to me with her usual adorable face, suggested we leave, and linked arms with me to exit the venue. I couldn't help but glance back at the Matthewses. President Matthews had collapsed on the floor, looking utterly devastated. Meanwhile, Samantha seemed to finally grasp her predicament, exclaiming, "Why me, the president's daughter? This is ridiculous." She was ranting hysterically. To think she still couldn't see herself as at fault. I bid farewell to the venue and left with Emily. Afterward, I heard the social gathering was cancelled. Indeed, continuing under those circumstances would have been impossible. A few days after the commotion, President Matthews visited our company to apologize, and that's when I heard the aftermath. A meeting was held concerning the incident, but somehow the discussion about dismissing President Matthews was postponed. He is competent at his job, which probably played a role in the decision. However, Samantha was dismissed for disciplinary reasons, and her path to becoming the next president was closed, leading to her departure from the company. I was surprised to hear disciplinary dismissal regarding this incident, but it turned out that a company-wide inquiry revealed Samantha's arrogant behavior. She was found to have been pushing her work onto others, being a habitual offender of tardiness and absence without leave. Furthermore, she was discovered to have made personal purchases under the guise of business expenses, leveraging her status as the president's daughter. President Matthews was completely unaware and could only hang his head in disappointment upon realizing just how problematic his daughter had been. Samantha, having to repay the misused funds, ended up in debt and was disowned by President Matthews. She is now juggling multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. President Matthews hoped the hardships would turn her into a decent person, but given how deep-rooted her issues were, that might be difficult. As usual, I've been keeping busy every day. I'm currently in the midst of developing a new product and exploring various possibilities. Amidst all that hustle and bustle, some joyful news reached me. Emily's pregnancy has been confirmed. I was overjoyed, but even more so were my uncle and Emily's grandfather, both shedding tears of happiness. The thought of our family growing fills me with excitement. I'm more motivated than ever to work hard and provide for my family every day.
While I was tidying up my desk, Director Higgins suddenly called for me. I had been thinking about resigning without saying another word, but since she summoned me, I reluctantly headed to her office. Then she dropped a bombshell.
Mr. Incompetent, take over the $15 million deal.
More than anything, I didn't want to be manipulated by her anymore. Besides, handing such a massive project to an employee who was practically fired seemed odd. Even if Director Higgins' dad is the EVP, I can't stand her making arbitrary decisions like this anymore. I reached a decision and asked her, "Can I see the documents?" Mistaking my intent, she smugly handed over the documents. Flipping through, I confirmed what I thought. My name was already in the column for the person in charge of that document. However, the date was from several months ago, before I was told I was being fired. Why did she bring up this deal now? Understanding her intentions, I spoke up firmly. "It's impossible since you've named me specifically. Since I'm being fired, I'll excuse myself. My name is Kevin Johnson. I am an employee of the company in my half of 50s. As I entered this company as a fresh graduate, I felt strange to think that more than half of my life had already passed, which made me feel like it was long or short. I worked in the sales department of a beverage manufacturer, enjoying my days as a salesperson. However, as the company expanded, the sales department was divided into sales and marketing. I was assigned to the marketing, and that's where I am now. Marketing is the department that creates mechanisms to sell products. Unlike sales, which directly handles sales contracts, marketing focuses on promoting to the market. While sales deals with current customers, marketing must understand the behavior of potential customers and devise business strategies. Initially confused by the difference, I found great satisfaction when our well-discussed and researched plans succeeded. However, no matter how much I researched the market and promoted my products, some did not sell at all, while others hit the unexpected target demographic. I gradually became fascinated by the depth of marketing. I am a senior member of the department, and although I am much older than the others, I have tried to communicate with the younger members as much as possible, and they have come to talk to me in an open and friendly manner. The open and comfortable atmosphere where everyone shares their opinions is something I greatly appreciate. Indeed, the young employees' perspectives are vital, and their quick grasp of trends through social media is impressive. Something becomes incredibly popular one moment, and then suddenly, no one talks about it anymore. Keeping up with the rapid changes and trends is a tough task at my age, but it's part of the job. An alien who's an incomprehensible enemy can become a helpful informant once they're on your side.
Kevin.
A young male employee approached me. "What's up?"
Our competitor company had a major blunder online yesterday.
"Really? What happened?" I try to keep up with the news, but I often miss smaller stories.
Seems like they messed up with their tagline.
He explained, showing me the trending post. This? Really?
Yeah, I saw this yesterday. This is a no-go. It's outdated, not something that would trend nowadays.
As I was talking, another female employee happened to pass by and joined in our conversation. So it's a no-go. Yo, definitely a no-go. The two of them agreed, nodding. That was a close call. We were actually considering going in that direction with our project. Guess we should drop it then. I had decided to change the tagline of the project I was working on, but it was better to go through that hassle than to face a public backlash.
That's a good idea. It'll definitely cause a stir.
Lately, these kinds of things have received much negative attention. It's better to avoid them, I think.
Thanks to everyone, from the juniors to the mid-level employees, who openly shared their opinions. Our marketing department has been working in a great atmosphere without major mistakes. However, this harmonious work environment was about to change due to personnel reassignment. Every year, our company undergoes staff reassignments, and this time was no exception, with significant changes. A woman in her 30s replaced our easygoing and always smiling director, who had been watching over us. Lisa Higgins was somewhat of a celebrity. Rumors were that she got into the company through connections as the daughter of the EVP and had been doing whatever she pleased in various departments. In fact, she was known to favor and be kind to those who praised her, but would ruthlessly push out anyone who disagreed or challenged her. Since the announcement, I feared what would become of our department, filled with people who always speak their minds. My bad feeling turned out to be spot on. To get approval for a certain project, I went to see Director Higgins, my boss. This project resulted from meticulous discussions with the staff, considering the opinions of the sales team, and finally coming together. We all felt confident in it, and were just waiting for the go-ahead to start production. She glanced through the project proposal and carelessly tossed it aside, saying, "What is this? It's completely no good. Could you please specify what's wrong?" Perceiving my insistence as defiance, Director Higgins glared at me sharply.
A bad project is just that, bad. Redo it.
Could you please advise me from which side I should start redoing it? I asked that with confusion. Her response was cold and blunt.
I said the whole thing. This project is rejected.
Wait, please, can we at least discuss the content a bit more? I pleaded, but she ignored me and walked out of her office. I had to tell everyone about getting a negative response from Director Higgins, and we set up a new project meeting. Since we had a fair amount of confidence in the previous project, the mood in the meeting room was gloomy. In the midst of this, a cheerfully out-of-place voice rang out.
What's with the glum faces, everyone? I've come up with a great idea.
The plan she proposed was so outrageous, it was doubtful if any market research had been done. Even a fresh graduate could come up with something better, we all thought, stunned, listening to Director Higgins' presentation. After a while, a young male employee hesitantly raised his hand.
Sorry, but what are the persona settings for this project?
Persona? What's that? I'm talking right now, so no need for your unnecessary input, she retorted and returned to her presentation. Persona, a basic marketing term, refers to a detailed and concrete image of a customer. It was evident she didn't know this. While listening to the pool presentation, everyone was quietly exchanging glances. All the members were confused. When she finished and asked if there were any questions, I raised my hand after some thought and spoke up clearly. Sorry, director, but we can't go forward with this project. Her demeanor changed instantly.
What do you mean?
To be honest, this project is not viable as a plan. In marketing, market research is crucial and at this point, Director Higgins let out an exaggerated sigh.
You don't get it.
What don't I get?
Your own position.
She said coldly, looking down on me. What does that mean? I began, but Director Higgins interrupted without letting me finish.
You're fired. Don't bother coming in next month.
Normally, a director couldn't just fire an employee on their own. But she, being a connection-based hire, must have had some influence I couldn't contend with. And so, I was suddenly fired from the company I had served for over 30 years. Despite my confusion and sadness, there was no reversing the dismissal. Eventually, I decided to move on, using my remaining leave to search for a new job. I only have connections at my current workplace, but thanks to a friend of mine who helped me out, it looks like I won't miss my meal at my age. My only concern was for the colleagues I was leaving behind. Regrettably, today was my last day. I hope that I could have a chat with everyone today, my last day of work. However, that didn't go as planned either. While I was tidying up my desk, Director Higgins suddenly called me. I was thinking of resigning without talking to her anymore, but since she summoned me, I reluctantly headed to her office. Then she dropped a bombshell.
Mr. Incompetent, take over the $15 million deal.
Confused about a handover on my last day, I asked her for clarification, only to hear an unbelievable response. I'll forget your firing ever happened for now. So, can you start on this deal right away? Though having my dismissal reversed might seem positive, I already had another job lined up. I couldn't just ignore the arrangements made with my new employer. More than anything, I didn't want to be manipulated by her anymore. Handling a large project worth $15 million to an employee who was suddenly fired is also somewhat strange. Even if Director Higgins' dad is the EVP, I can't stand her making arbitrary decisions like this anymore. I reached a decision and asked her, "Can I see the documents?" Mistaking my intent, she smugly handed over the documents. Flipping through, I confirmed what I thought. My name was already in the column for the person in charge of that document. However, the date was from several months ago, before I was told I was being fired. Why did she bring up this deal now? Understanding her intentions, I spoke up firmly. It's impossible since you've named me specifically. Since I'm being fired, I'll excuse myself.
What? You're turning down a $15 million project?
She exclaimed. Yes, to be precise, I can't accept it under your leadership. I'll be handling similar projects at my new job.
What?
At my words, Director Higgins stood up abruptly, making a loud noise, revealing a disheveled appearance I had never seen.
What do you mean?
She demanded, slamming her hand on the desk. I sighed and began explaining. When I was fired, I first consulted a former colleague from sales. He was originally meant to join the marketing department, but chose to return to sales instead. Now, he was a sales director at another beverage company. I still went out for drinks with him, and I valued his advice as a senior in job transitions. He listened quietly to my story, then casually offered,
"Why don't you join us?"
"Really? Is that okay?" I was taken aback but grateful. He seemed to be on good terms with the HR director at his company and told me he would try to talk to him. Things moved quickly from there. I never expected to transition so smoothly at this stage of my career. I had secured a job at a competing beverage company, assigned to the marketing department. It felt like a stroke of luck. During my interview, the HR director asked me something. They wanted to know if I knew about a major project that had recently started. It was a much-discussed plan about forming a business alliance with a rival company. The money involved was substantial. Due to the alliance between rival companies, it was a hot topic in the industry, so I had heard about it. However, I didn't know about the specific details. When I said so, the HR director looked puzzled. According to their records, I was involved in the project. Surprised, I instinctively said that couldn't be, but then it made sense. This project had indeed been officially brought to our company's attention. The project was initially addressed to me, but Director Higgins had covertly tried to take over, later deciding to let go when it became too much. Her attempt at usurping was bad enough, but not seeing it through was worse. Her attitude towards work infuriated me. She had likely climbed to her position through power and claiming others' achievements. Realizing how poorly she had handled the situation, I let out another deep sigh. Director Higgins, who had been listening to me, started trembling and then shouted,
"That's unacceptable. You must take this project."
"But even if you say that," frustrated that I had no intention of taking over, the director turned back to the staff and said,
"Are you running away? If you leave, the remaining members will handle it. You are such a bastard for leaving your colleagues."
Well, feeling like my colleagues who had helped me so much were being held hostage, I was lost for words. But then something happened. Everyone's attention was captured by a figure entering the office. He was a man dressed in a finely tailored suit, exuding a dignified aura.
That's enough, Lisa.
It was EVP Higgins.
"Dad."
Director Higgins, taken aback, stepped back. She hadn't expected her dad to intervene. "Mr. Higgins." I was equally surprised. EVP Higgins, a man I rarely see around the office. He rarely visited the marketing department, if ever. Despite knowing it was my last day, I hadn't expected him to come.
Sorry about this, Kevin. My daughter has caused you trouble,
He said apologetically. "No, I never expected you to come."
Well, I do love my daughter. I've looked the other way until now, but I thought it was too much this time. I don't even know how to begin apologizing to you.
Saying that, EVP Higgins politely apologized. "Please, no need to apologize."
"Why are you doing this for him, Dad?"
Director Higgins' expression as she said this was filled with anxiety and seemed frightened.
You shouldn't say such a person about Kevin. We were colleagues in sales.
EVP Higgins corrected her firmly. I had a long-standing relationship with the VP Higgins from our sales days. Since he became an executive, we have rarely seen each other inside the company, but he occasionally invites me for drinks. I was contacted with him during my paid leave, and I had been explaining the whole situation regarding this incident.
But Dad, I am this person's superior."
Thinking you can do anything because you're the boss is a grave mistake.
EVP Higgins raised her voice, causing Director Higgins to visibly flinch.
Lisa, you've gone too far. You're an adult, a professional. I'm sorry, but you'll have to face the consequences, even as my daughter.
"Wait, Dad, I haven't done anything wrong."
Director Higgins, pale-faced, clung to her dad.
I've been listening to you guys outside the room. Using your mood to dictate someone's career is unacceptable. You're not suited for leadership.
That's not true. I did well in my previous department.
Director Higgins, tears in her eyes, insisted.
You've always climbed the ladder by taking credit for others' work. That's not real work. It's time to stop playing house.
It's terrible to call it playing house. I was doing it properly.
Despite Director Higgins' tearful plea, EVP Higgins turned her back on her daughter, not listening.
I will report this matter to the president myself. It's my fault for letting it go this far. Kevin, I'm truly sorry for what happened. I hope you can fully utilize your abilities in your new position. I'm praying for your success.
Thank you. If it's okay, I'd like to go out for drinks again. EVP Higgins smiled narrowly at my words, leaving Director Higgins, who was in tears, and exiting the marketing department. Not long after my resignation, Director Higgins' fate was also decided. She was demoted and transferred to a remote sales office. A clear case of being sidelined. EVP Higgins voluntarily offered to cut her own executive compensation. The marketing department team, as usual, was voicing their opinions freely and seemed to be fully engaged in their planning meetings. They appeared to be quite satisfied with their new boss, and the emails I occasionally received from them sounded cheerful. I hope they never forget that honesty and continue to have fulfilling days ahead.
Kevin.
A young male employee approached me while I was looking at my PC. What's up?
Check out this post. It's going viral.
What? Which one are you talking about?
This one.
He said, showing me his cell phone screen. Wow, so many comments.
We did it. This will definitely be a topic of conversation.
Reading through the numerous comments, I couldn't help but strike a victory pose. This photo came out great too. The male employee chuckled at my words. What? What's funny?
No, it's just, I always forget because you talk so casually, but there's quite an age difference between you and me, Kevin. I just felt a bit of a generation gap there.
Where? What part? In my flustered state, he dropped a cold one-liner.
That's a secret.
Why? Tell me.
Can't do that.
The male employee grinned and walked back to his desk. What's that all about? I muttered, still not understanding where the generation gap lay, and turned my gaze back to my PC. Since my job change, a few months had passed. Even though I was still in the same industry and marketing department, the internal systems and ways of working were of course different. Learning everything new at this age was quite challenging. Lately, everyone from the young to the senior members has started to talk to me more openly. It was a great joy to work in an environment where everyone had strong opinions and we could learn and grow from each other. The $15 million project is still ongoing. Ultimately, my trusted colleague at my former company took over my responsibilities, which was a relief. Seeing each other at meetings has become one of my joys. Since my career change, I've realized there's still so much to learn in marketing. Despite being older, I'm still a newcomer here and eager to absorb as much as I can.
Kevin, the meeting is starting.
Hearing my colleague's voice, I quickly stood up from my seat. All right, I'm on my way. With a spring in my step, I headed to the conference room. I wonder what ideas will be shared today. Filled with anticipation, I opened the door to the meeting room.
My name is John Anderson. This is quite sudden, but I was born into a very poor family. When my dad passed away from illness, I was still in elementary school. Plus, I had 2 younger siblings. My mom worked from dawn till dusk, but we were still so poor that we couldn't have meals enough. Our clothes were worn out, and we didn't have kind of books or toys that everyone else could buy. Yet, we lived without complaints because we were blessed with great people around us. My family got along well, and all my friends were good people. Among them, my best friend was Kevin Smith. We've been classmates since elementary school and are still best friends. I wasn't very smart. I wasn't good at sports either, and I was just a student who couldn't shine in school. But school was fun because Kevin was there. Kevin was different from me. He was the son of a wealthy family. His dad was the president of a big company. Kevin had many friends, excellent grades, and was favored by teachers, standing out as the most prominent student in our grade. Despite that, he hung out with a poor guy like me without any discrimination. Even when I was bullied by boys in my class, saying, "John is spreading poverty," Kevin always stood up to protect me. Kevin and I lived near each other, so we always played together after school. We read books in the school library, did homework at each other's houses, and enjoyed playing pretend until it got dark. Kevin seemed to know that my family was poor, but he never pitied me. He kindly said, "John, if you don't have games, I'll lend you mine." There was a difference in our family backgrounds, but Kevin and I were really close friends, and I always wanted to remain best friends with him. Wanting to be with Kevin as much as possible, I worked hard to keep good grades and managed to get into the same prep school as him. We attended a co-ed prep school and were in the same class. We knew we'd go our separate ways after graduating, but it was a joy to spend our student life together. Plus, I got my first girlfriend in prep school. Her name was Alice Johnson, a central figure in our class. She was fashionable and cute, and I was over the moon to be dating her. But I wondered why she would date someone like me. She confessed out of the blue, and I had no reason to refuse, but we didn't have any connection before. My family was still poor, and I wasn't a standout student. Why would Alice like someone like me? However, as we dated, I started to like Alice. I cherished her as my girlfriend and worked hard at part-time jobs to give her gifts on her birthday and Christmas. I thought our relationship was going well, until I heard that rumor. One day, a mutual friend told me a shocking rumor. It was that Alice was dating me because she wanted to get close to the popular Kevin. Her friends confirmed that Alice herself said it, so there was no doubt, but I couldn't believe it at first. Indeed, Alice and Kevin started talking more since she and I began dating. She even asked him for his contact information. Kevin didn't give it to her, saying, "It's not right for John." But I saw Alice talking to Kevin many times. I became increasingly suspicious, but it was just a rumor. It couldn't be true about Alice. Torn, but consumed with anxiety, I finally asked her directly. And then she said, "Oh, you found out. But it's obvious, isn't it? There's no way I could fall for a poor guy with no future like you. I was dumped right there and then. Everything went dark before my eyes. Alice's real target was indeed to be Kevin's girlfriend, and I was just being used. I get why women are drawn to Kevin. He's genuinely a great guy. But being used as a stepping stone was still a huge shock to me. After that, I stopped talking to Alice. It seemed like Alice, ignored by Kevin, started dating and breaking up with guys from other schools. But I didn't want to hear about it anymore. Since graduating high school, I haven't seen Alice. That experience made me distrustful of women. After graduation, I ended up working in a factory. I was looking for a job with not many women, so I was grateful to work in a male-dominated factory. However, the factory salary alone wasn't enough to support my family. Since my current job allows side gigs, I was looking for something when Kevin offered me a part-time job. This job pays well and has been a big help. I'm thankful to Kevin, who's always been supportive. But I also know I can't rely on side gigs forever. I want to advance in my factory job. I've never been much for flashy things. I prefer working steadily to build something. I still get scolded by my boss a lot, and there's much I haven't mastered yet. Even so, I love this job where we all collaborate to create products. I chose this job and I want to make it here. With this thought, I work diligently every day. Then, one day, Kevin got married. He handed me an invitation personally, saying, "John, I want you to give a speech as the friend representative." Of course, I gladly accepted. On the wedding day, I entered the grand hall of a top-tier hotel, which was filled with people. It seemed Kevin's business connections were also there, with over 500 guests. But I was shocked when I saw the seating chart. Alice was at the same table. Kevin didn't know why we broke up, so he probably seated us together because we were high school classmates. It was tense and awkward seeing Alice after so long, and I couldn't escape since we were at the same table. When I sat down, Alice, seeing me, was surprised.
Hey, John, long time no see.
Yeah, long time.
Your outfit is kind of rough, huh? It looks very poor guy. How did you even come to such a fancy place in those clothes?
She chuckled, looking at my cheap suit and shoes. I felt embarrassed and looked down, but then a woman next to Alice intervened.
Stop it, Alice. Hi, John. It's been a while.
You are, Emily. It was Emily Williams, another high school classmate, sitting next to Alice. We were never in the same class, but I knew her as Alice's friend. It's been a while. Have you been well since graduation?
Yeah. I haven't changed since high school. You seem taller and more rugged than before.
Really? Emily complimented me, but Alice said disdainfully,
This guy only has his physical strength going for him. John, where do you work now?
At a factory.
I couldn't do that. I can't imagine being with a guy who doesn't wear a suit to work.
Alice laughed again. I was at a loss for words, and the atmosphere at the table turned sour. I felt sorry for Emily. As I was feeling this, the newlyweds appeared. Everyone applauded for Kevin in his tuxedo and his bride in her stunning dress. As I clapped, Alice, resting her chin on her hand, said,
I'm jealous. I had my sights on Kevin, but to lose him to that woman.
Alice, don't say things like that.
If I hadn't dated the poor guy, I should have aimed for Kevin from the start.
The hall was buzzing with excitement, but I just felt more miserable. Indeed, Kevin is on the fast track to success, and all our classmates are doing well. Nobody else at the wedding worked in a factory like I did. That's probably why Alice was making fun of me. I was feeling down when I was called for the friend representative speech. I had prepared notes, but when I saw Kevin, words just flowed. I even teared up a bit at the end, and Kevin, crying a little too, and I shared a laugh. When I returned to my seat, Emily looked at me curiously.
John, I don't know if I should ask this, but
What is it?
could it be that you're John?
Just as she was about to say something, a piano performance began, and the host announced, "Please enjoy some conversation time." During this time, Kevin's father, Smith, the company president, approached. He was pouring drinks at each table and looked delighted to see me.
John, thanks for the speech. It was moving.
Congratulations on today. Thank you for inviting me. As we were talking, Alice quickly came over.
You're Kevin's dad, right? I'm Alice, Kevin's classmate.
Thanks for coming today.
This wedding is so different because it's the president's sins. The venue and the food are so grand. She was obviously flattering him. Emily and I watched her with amazement.
Well, our company is still growing. Nowadays, we're really relying on John here.
What?
Why him? Alice looked at me, puzzled. Then Smith clapped me on the shoulder and said,
Didn't Kevin tell you? John is our star player.
Star player? But he works in a factory, right?
His main job is that, but he's been helping out our company part-time. He's a voice actor.
Voice actor?
In fact, Smith's company is a major talent agency. With many anime and virtual characters, I've been working there under the name Clint. I've never been good at sports or studies, but I've always been complimented on my voice. Kevin, who once aspired to be a voice actor, used to envy my voice when we played radio or voice acting as kids. That's why Kevin recommended me to his dad. This part-time job has helped a lot with tuition and living expenses. I've been unnoticed, but I've voiced some famous characters.
Well, that character too?
I know that character. It was in a commercial recently.
John is a hot shot. He has many fans, and his character merchandise sells well. Our company is thriving thanks to him.
As we talked, people began to gather around our table. Industry big shots and celebrities started crowding around me.
He's that voice actor. Wow, I've always watched that anime.
Can I get your autograph?
As I was being fussed over, Alice was speechless. She looked embarrassed and kept her head down after that. Meanwhile, I'm not used to being the center of attention, could only respond awkwardly. It seems I'm more suited to factory work than being in the spotlight. A few days after Kevin's wedding, Emily called me out. I was working overtime that day, so I went to the cafe in my work clothes.
Sorry to call you out during work.
No, it's fine. I was just on a break. What's up?
Well, Alice asked me to give you a message. She wants to get back together with you and asked for my help.
What?
Alice doesn't know your contact details, so she asked me.
Emily and I had exchanged contact information at the wedding. It seems Alice, impressed by my popularity at the wedding, desperately approached Emily to get back together with me. I was shocked at how blatantly Alice flipped her attitude after ridiculing me so much. But Emily was angry.
I told her it was rude and she should stop, but she insisted. I'm sorry.
Emily, you don't need to apologize. I wasn't too angry, knowing Emily was upset on my behalf. But I thought she was such a kind person to go out of her way on a weekend for a friend. If Alice likes me just because I'm a voice actor, then I can't date her. Sure, voice acting is fun, but my dream is to advance in the factory. Alice had mocked my factory job, so I doubted she'd approach me again. As I told Emily about not planning to continue voice acting forever and wanting to advance in the factory to support my family, she nodded understandingly.
It's best to choose a job that suits you. Your work clothes really suit you, John.
Really? Isn't it dirty?
People who work hard towards their dreams always look great.
Her smile prompted me to ask something I'd been curious about. Emily, you realized my voice before I talked about voice acting, right? She looked puzzled after my speech, probably because she recognized it. That was the first time for me, so it caught me off guard. Really, maybe I have good ears. She chuckled. I felt comfortable with Emily, who accepted me as I am, not just as a popular voice actor. I wondered if I should ask her out. After being wary of women for so long, I wanted to talk more with Emily. Would you like to go out with me sometime, just the two of us? I mustered up the courage to ask. Emily playfully responded,
I might get hated by Alice, so I bet not.
What?
Just kidding. I don't need to worry about that. Besides, she said she couldn't handle a guy who doesn't wear a suit, right? I'll just tell her that, so it's fine.
Yeah, you're right. I couldn't help but laugh at her joke. Emily was bright and genuine, and I felt comfortable around her. As we went on several dates, Emily and I started dating. I could be myself with her, without any pretense, and it felt like a stroke of luck to have someone so easy to talk to. I was motivated to work hard at my job, and someday I hope to have a happy family too. I might not be able to afford a fancy venue like Kevin's, but I thought it would be nice to have a modest wedding that suits us.